Fast forward to 1992, and the whole packing order had changed. We had now US, Japan, and Germany, Italy, and France, and China had been relegated to number 7th position in the world at that time. India was not yet in the first 10. Over the next decade, now we look at 2002, the pecking order had more or less remained the same, but China had muscled its way up to 3rd position. Another decade later, which is 2012, now we see India has finally broken into the 9th position in the world. And China has by now regained its predominant position. And the pecking order in 2012 is China 22%, US with 17%, Japan with 10%, India with 2.1%. But we are in the 9th position. But now one factor that we should keep in mind is that these figures and the rankings are also based upon the size of the population that all countries have. So surely when we talk of China and India, we are the only 2 countries with a billion-plus club. Okay? But when you break it down at the per capita level, then the whole equation changes, the ranking level changes. There, Japan leads the pack by far at about $9,000 per capita. That is the manufacturing output. I come to France. France is $3,500. China is nearly $2,000, and India is $200. So despite being in the 9th position at a per capita level, we have really a long distance to cover. Now, this actually helps us to place where we are in the global order of things. And as all of us who have studied history or have studied economics, we all know that all leading economies and all big developed countries, they all have gone through a phase of making a huge industrial base first, developing a huge skilled workforce, and then they have switched over to the services sector. In India's case, it hasn't really played out that way. In India's case, we did have a phase of industrialization, but very soon we switched over to the services. But obviously, services sector can never be a substitute for a big, massive industrial base that all industrial economies do need. At this point, the question would arise is, what is actually holding us back? Why is it that we haven't been able to move forward? As per the World Bank statistics which were published recently, are in public domain and have been a subject of great debate in India and elsewhere. You know, in terms of ease of doing business, we rank 142 out of 187. When it comes to issuance of construction permit, we rank 184 out of 187. And when it comes to enforcing the contracts, we are ranking 186 out of 189. And this is notwithstanding the very comprehensive and widespread legal system that we have. So then the question is, why these things are blocking us? At this point, I think it is worthwhile listing a certain set of, some of them the ambassador mentioned, rigid labor laws. These things have been pointed out also in the recent studies of the Confederation of Indian Industries, and they are in the white paper by different experts. So first of all, we have the issue of rigid labor laws, and as per the World Bank, I think Indian labor laws are among the most rigid. And something very unique that you talked about 2 specific labor acts is the Trade Union Act of India goes back to 1926. The Industrial Dispute Act of India goes back to 1947. Now there of course have been tweaks all along in these last 70 years, but the fact is the whole business model of doing business, of running industry worldwide and also in India has undergone a metamorphosis. It has changed totally, so there is need to work on the labor laws. The second issue is manufacturing. You mentioned this statistics, Mr. Ambassador, that look, today the share of the manufacturing in Indian economy is 16%. In 1947, it was 18%. So despite the change in the size of the Indian economy, in absolute terms, the percentage has actually gone down from 18 to 16. And despite the fact today, we are a $2 trillion economy. And just for the purposes of comparison, not for any competitive economics, the Chinese economy, which is a $10 trillion economy now, it has 32% share. You mentioned about that. So just look at it. A $2 trillion economy has 16% share of the manufacturing, and then we have a $10 trillion economy, which has 32% share of the economy, and this is all coming from manufacturing. I will just briefly mention the deficient energy scene that we have, which is also a big bottleneck, whether it's for electricity, whether it's for coal, whether it's for oil and gas imports, and of course, unlike US, we haven't had a shale gas revolution, which has made US as the biggest energy producer in the world. We also have issues of the stressed financial system, our banks. You know, as per the latest articles in The Economist, it says that the Indian public sector banks today have a ratio of troubled loans 12%, whereas the private banks in India are only 4%. And over a period of next 3 or 4 years, we would need $40 billion for recapitalization of these banks, which is something like 260,000 crores of money which has to be put in the banks to make it healthy. Then, of course, we have the famous or infamous fragmented and unpredictable tax regime. And in particular, I would mention retro tax, which has unnerved a lot of investors in the last few years. And of course, one of the biggies is the skill set deficit. Now, there is one very interesting statistics here, and that is, as per World Bank, by 2020, the world globally will have a deficit of 56 million skilled people. And in counterpart, India will have a surplus of 47 million skilled people. So out of 56 million deficit in the world, 47 million people could be available from India. This is a World Bank statistics. But I think there is a moment of sobering thought here, because in parallel, there is also another study by the Indian industry which says that up to 37% of our technical people are not really employable in the first instance. That means they have to be trained further. And I personally have had a chat with quite a few chairmen of big Indian companies, and they all have confided that, look, after we get the graduates or the technical diploma holders, we need to train them further. So therefore, when we talk about Skill India, as Ambassador was saying, it's not a one-off process, it's a continuous process that we will have to keep on working at it. Legal system as we talked before, is that it's a very comprehensive system, but obviously it moves at a very glacial pace at sometimes. And one of the factors for this is that, we have 14 judges per million population against 100 in US. That is one of the factors that makes it glacial. And therefore, it comes as no surprise that when it comes to enforcing the contracts, we have 186 out of 189. Infrastructure, we all know, so I will skip it. And of course, another biggie is the land acquisition, which has been in news for right or wrong reasons for the last couple of years. That the procedures are very protracted, and it's very unpredictable formality. There are a lot of clearances. A lot of work has been done, of course, but these are some of the issues. Now, to come to the point that Ambassador raised, once again, taking reference to what the Confederation of Indian Industry has said, that for us to grow at the rate of a healthy 8 to 9% over next years, the secondary and the tertiary sectors must grow at 10 to 11%. And the agricultural sector alone must grow at about 4%. This would perforce necessitate, or will actually force, a massive migration from the primary agriculture, or let's say from the rural areas, towards the urban areas. And this is nothing unusual, because this has happened earlier in all developed economies. And this projects an incremental demand of 240 million jobs by 2022. That must be filled by skilled people. So therefore, Make in India, once again, is something that has started, has been going on for 60, 70 years. But this skill development is a process that has to be continued with increased acceleration if we have to meet the requirements not only of India per se, but also to be able to meet the export of manpower in different segments of skills. In short, the whole issue is about jobs, jobs, and more jobs in years to come. And everything that needs to be done, and Make in India, I believe, is part of that, is to create jobs and to take our economy forward. This, gentlemen, is the historical backdrop of where we were, what all has happened, what are the issues that are confronting us today, and what we need to do and what can be done. I mean, we all know what needs to be done, but as Suman had pointed out, it's important to debate what really can be done in the context of Indian constraints. So that's very important. At this point, I think I've taken more than 10 minutes for this talk, but I think it was necessary to make a framework of this debate. But we would now start with our panelists. Anna, I would like to put you in the dock first with your talk, because you know, you have, in many ways, you represent some of the best that France has to offer. Okay? Philip, don't get complex there.
Much more Sindhi than
but you know, you have been involved in, you've been involved in technology transfers between France and India. You are familiar with the problem of doing business in India. You have been part of the French administration, so I'm sure you have felt and seen and experienced the constraints that the French feel when they are doing business with India. So it will be very interesting to hear your viewpoints about this. So now, the floor is yours.
Thank you.